Okay, then. So it seems we have Rakdos Midrange against Amalla combo. So Mason, how do you feel about this matchup in general? Because Amalla combo is quite resilient.
Amalla combo is a very resilient deck. And I know this was a deck that originally Derek here, better known as Misplaced Address we talked about before, was
Yeah.
sort of a hater on. He kind of thought the deck wasn't good. I haven't talked to him much since then, so I'm curious to see sort of how he thinks about the deck now. But this is a matchup that's pretty skill testing. Basically, the Amalla deck can win out of nowhere, and it's going to force Derek to make some pretty split-second decisions to figure out, hey, am I supposed to tap out here for a threat to die to the combo if they have it? What do I do? How do I navigate around these sort of positions? And that is something that, if anyone can do with Rakdos, it is Derek Pite here. He is the Rakdos midrange guy when it comes to Pioneer. He is kind of the thought leader on the deck. And, for a while there on the ELO project was the winningest player in Comp REL Pioneer. So it is going to be very exciting to see how he wants to navigate this, because Angel kind of has this element of threatening the whole time, right?
Yeah.
The combo really puts the opponent in a position where they have to respect it. And so even if Angel doesn't have the exact cards they want, it is okay, because Derek might have to make plays that are kind of suboptimal to not lose if Angel does a good job presenting the combo and posturing in such a way here in round number 2.
For sure. So let's talk about Amalla combo. So with the release of Murders of Karlov Manor, are there any new cards from that set that the Amalla combo players are interested in incorporating while Angel goes through their mulligans?
Yeah, so the one card that we saw Mingu even mention last round a little bit was the Case of the Uneaten Feast. We saw some players excited about that. But for the most part, I haven't seen a ton of new innovations yet. Like we mentioned, though, this has been sort of on the back burner, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was some creature that was a nice add for this deck. Being a toolbox creature deck, you just get so many options every single set. It does look like the players are ready to go, though.
Yep, so Angel starts off with a Razor Edge Thicket into a Gilded Goose.
Yeah, and this is going to allow Angel to kind of have the fastest starts possible in their deck and put Ginger on the most back foot.
But speaking of fast starts, Derek's Rakdos midrange deck seems to be more aggressively slanted. How does that work as a midrange deck? What does aggressively slanted mean? Like, what kind of cards would Derek be incorporating here?
Yeah, so cards like Inti, which we talked about before, those sort of cards are going to allow Derek to sort of play a game that's a little bit more attack focused and not have to play as long a game. If you've been watching the Rakdos deck for a long time, there was a while where a lot of their threats had the ability to turn sideways and do a pretty good job, but they kind of were also able to play more defensively. Derek's threats are a little bit better when they're kind of applying the pressure.
Yeah, as we just saw here, Torch the Tower just took out that Amalla, because Amalla is just such a problem card. You need to deal with it immediately.
Yeah, and that was a pretty huge lineup moment there from Misplaced Ginger, because Torch the Tower does exile. So now Angel's cards like, Return to the Ranks do not provide us with extra copies of the Amalla, which is sometimes something you'll see happen is we'll play Amalla, they'll pay the ward to lose 3 life. His Misplaced Ginger Derek there is down to 17. But, then you get it back later, and it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. So it looks like Angel here is just playing another Razor Thicket and passing. And Derek chooses just to play a land, and it feels like we're very land going at the minute. And it looks like Angel's going to pop off a Collected Company just to clog up that board and hopefully find that combo, that devastating combo from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Can't see what cards have been revealed here just because of the glare, but it looks like we have a Prosperous Innkeeper and another Amalla. So even with that Torch the Tower, you can just replace the Amalla with another Amalla. This is how resilient the Abzan focus combo deck is.
Yeah, and I think one thing that goes underappreciated, one is Amalla's just explore. Like when you gain life, it's going to happen right here. Just, lets you sculpt your draw a little bit. Makes it so if we're going to flood on lands, you do that a little bit less. But also the ward 3 life. Like what really happens is ward 3 the first time's not a big deal. Ward 3 the second time's not a big deal. But once you start getting to like the third time, which this deck does consistently, then suddenly Derek is in a position where, hey, I'm kind of starting the game at 10-ish life, between my shock lands and other things. And it's very easy for Angel to pressure 10 life. Angel's deck, not super good at dealing 20 damage via combat, really good at doing 10 damage via combat.
For sure. Sometimes as a combo deck, you just need to be aggressive. Playing an aggro or a mid-range plan, sometimes it's just enough. as we're seeing right here with Amalla and Innkeeper getting in the red zone. So Derek will go down to 17.
Yep.
And looks like no.
Yeah, it looks like Angel made the food, popped the food to get the Explore trigger off the Amalla so that we can maybe push a little bit more damage, but Ginger might be responding.
Looks like a bit of triumph coming for Amalla here at the cost of 3 life due to the ward.
Yeah, I think we're also paying the 3 life on the bitter. Looks like Derek has a bunch of cards in here we don't want to lose. So that's a 6 life to kill that Amalla.
Yep.
And Bitter Triumph is one of those more powerful cards we've been seeing recently. In the
there we go. Yep.
Spot.
Just sorry, I was just checking to see if Derek's life total was being updated because it was a little slow. But now, carry on.
No, you're good. Yeah, I think we might have had a little bit of a misstep in the early turns when we missed that first Amalla trigger. So, Derek kind of getting away, a little bit of murder there at the manor, as it were. But, it shows just how strong this Bitter Triumph card is because not a card I think players thought would be adopted in droves in the older formats. But when you combine with cards like Inti, really strong.
Yeah, Black isn't sure on effective removal spells these days. There's just so many, even in Murders of Karlov Manor as well. There's just a bunch just to choose from these days. And now we have everyone's favorite mechanic, the day-night cycle, is coming into effect thanks to Graveyard Trespasser.
And if you're Derek and you're watching this game, there's a good sense that Angel probably doesn't have a lot of powerful cards in hand because last turn we spent our whole turn, trying to just get the Amalla Scry and the potential extra damage going through. Excuse me, the Explore. And so that is kind of a big sign that, Angel doesn't have much going on. And we see Derek kind of capitalize on that by playing the Graveyard Trespasser, gets the Amalla out of the yard, and, does risk dying to the Amalla combo or gaining, 70 life, essentially dying. But doesn't have to worry about it here.
Okay, looks like Derek's kicking off with a Kroxa, Titans of Death Hunger, forcing Angel to discard a card, which will be I believe that's a Death Cat Blooming Marsh. Sorry, looks like a Blooming Marsh there. So Angel can take the life loss just because this is a life gain deck. 3 life is just nothing, but having that Kroxa in the graveyard is just a good thing to do in the early game because it means you can just develop like a huge threat once you have enough cards to escape it with.
Yeah, and one thing too that's kind of unique about the Amalla deck, right, is that typically cards like Kroxa, as the game kind of moves on, and other discard spells, they might be a little bit weaker because you play a lot of your better cards early. But there's actually a lot of incentive as we see another Kroxa.
Another Kroxa.
Yeah, there's a lot of incentives though for Angel to actually hold some of the better cards for later and have Derek fight over, the medium cards at the moment. Yeah,
and now Angel has 1 card in hand. Unfortunately, just drawing a load of lands before then. See what they have in their hand right now. Is it Return to the Ranks?
I think they're just flashing back or, what's it called? Afterlifing the
Lunar Veteran. Yeah.
So
turn it into a Luminous Phantom.
Ooh, look at you, Luminous Phantom. Knew what's up.
And looks like a Senate Scout just to get that Explore trigger. Even though the Amalla isn't in play, it's sometimes just want to know what's on top of your deck. Angel's kind of running out of gas here. While that collector company was well timed, Derek's been able to deal with these Amallas effectively through exiling as well. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Angel, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Angel's done, a good job in the early game of forcing Derek to kind of have it, but sort of, and admittedly, Angel had nothing else to do, kind of had to show like, hey, surprise, my hand kind of stinks when we went for that Gilded Goose line, and Derek smelt blood and then sort of, pounced on that opportunity and hasn't stopped since.
Yeah. Now Derek gets aggressive with this Graveyard Trespasser, just continuing to keep this keep Angel's graveyard tidy in the sense that just exiling everything just makes that return to the ranks so much worse in the late game if it is ever drawn. And we'll see what Derek follows up with here. He's sorting his mana in a particular way that suggests he might have something.
Yeah, it's also a pretty interesting spot here where, Angel doesn't have much going on, but any creature we play is going to gain us a little bit of life. If we draw lands, we just have Gilded Goose to activate, make a food, pop the food, and we hit, Derek for like 3-ish damage. So Angel is in kind of, this is like a okay position, but we quickly need to find something that does pressure because right now we're basically holding at parity with Derek. But the moment Derek gets something like Kroxa in play, we're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah. Can also see Derek does have a Fatal Push in hand as well, just to pick off some of these smaller threats that could become a problem because Derek is on 14. We've seen a huge life exchange with the Bitter Triumph and the Amalla triggers.
Yeah, it's worth noting that, Angel is playing cards like Aetherflux Reservoir in the main deck.
Yeah, there is a one-off.
Yeah, that's a good way to win once you assemble the combo right away without attacking. So that might make something, like a sorcery speed removal spell less effective. But also, if, Angel is just able to incidentally gain some life, like not even doing the 50, just incidentally, I accidentally, gained 5-6 life over the course of the game. That can be a way to win the race when you have such small creatures here.
Yeah. And Derek pops off a Sokenzan, Crucible of Defiance, making 2 colorless spirit tokens just to slow down that aggression that Angel is trying to do, because, to be honest, they don't have much else to do.
Yep. And Angel is going to gain the 2 from the Luminous Spirit, I believe.
Yep.
You taught me the name. Let's go.
Sometimes I know these flip cards. There's so many of them. And sometimes you just don't flip them. You just play them for one side.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Angel with the Expedition,
Beta post tickets.
Yeah, those are nice.
Do love me some Expeditions. And they're not too expensive considering, Expeditions historically have been quite expensive. It's pretty cool just to play these really unique printings in a format like Pioneer, which doesn't have the card pool such as Modern, where you can really fancy out and bling out your decks.
Which you could do at nrgstore.com.
Nice plug.
What was that? Oh my goodness.
You got a cough, Mason?
Yeah. Speaking of a cough, this is a new card for Derek's deck here. Tell me what Fable the Mirror Breaker adds to this Rakdos deck. We haven't seen this one much in the past.
No, I don't think we haven't seen it much in Standard recently either, for very good reasons. I think Fable of Mirror Breaker is probably one of the best cards in Pioneer. When it came out in Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, it was very, very underlooked. I don't think people quite realize how good the card is. You're laughing at the token.
Yeah, Derek has a token of himself seemingly in the Mall of America with a toy shotgun as his Goblin Shaman. That's a very Derek Pike thing to do.
But yeah, going back to Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which is probably one of the best cards in Pioneer. A lot of people slept on it for the first few weeks when Neon Dynasty came out. But when they started playing with this card, it was like, oh god, this card's great because it generates mana, creates you a token that attacks, creates treasures, you got discard draw, and then you've just got this ability to copy like some of your best creatures if you want to. There's just so much this card does for free mana, like in red. It's just insane. Cease plays in Modern, cease playing Pioneer, saw playing Standard, and then it became banned because it was a little too good for that format.
And we saw Dyna Soulkeeper into the play there while we were talking about this new innovative card into the deck, Fable the Mirror Breaker. And that card's actually pretty important, one for the comboing, but two, now if Angel ends up gaining life, Derek is going to lose life.
And
so
Derek's on 8 as well.
Yeah, so trump blocking now with things like Snoot Scout is going to actually cost Derek 2 life. We have these flyers. Obviously, Derek's cards are much stronger, but, Angel is able to do the chip shot. And we talked about that ward coming up big time earlier in the game. It might be, a decision maker here, or game decider. Excuse me.
Yeah, also shout out to Angel for having a serialized foil copy of Dina from March of the Machine, which is another very blingy, expensive card. So it's clear that Angel really loves this Amalla combo deck and is slowly starting to fall it out with some of the nice variants.
Yeah, I like this play by Derek as well. We attacked with Graveyard Trespasser and actually got rid of some of our own creatures. It's very tempting to want to bring something like Kroxa back, but Derek understands I need to get Angel dead and I need to not die along the way. So while Kroxa might be a very tempting play here, looks like Derek has better uses for the mana and just does not want to lose the life.
Yeah. I still can't get over that token. And here comes the Fatal Push that we saw earlier. It's just going to take out that Dina, because Derek will slowly lose life if the longer that stays in play. But it looks like Angel's going to make the most value out of it from just sacrificing a food token, allowing Angel to gain some life and Derek to lose a life in the process.
Yeah, I think our life totals are a bit off. We'll get our spotter to clarify everything in a second.
Yeah.
There are a lot of triggers going on right now. And with how many like gain life when things die triggers, it's typically best for us to kind of let everything happen instead of the numbers freaking out on screen. So we'll get them covered in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, that was a pretty heads up play there by Derek, I think, to sort of exile that. And Angel did a good job of not missing any small edges there with the food. That stuff comes up a lot.
And here comes the Kroxa that we talked about earlier. And this will take over the game. 6 damage is a lot. And these Gilded Gooses are going to probably be on blocking duty.
Yep.
I think Derek's in a really good spot here, just based on cards in hand, board presence, and there's a Fable of the Mirror Breaker in play as well. That can do some pretty nasty stuff here. Also good on Derek for getting his day-night triggers correct. Oof, top deck return to the ranks will bide some time for Angel Flores here, bringing back that Dina as well. That was a very good top deck.
That is what you're looking for. And, you know, good thing Derek had stuff like Graveyard Trespasser to get rid of Innkeeper, because just to show that would have been, you know, multiple life gained for Angel, which would have done multiple pings to Derek, and then the attacks from the spirits. Derek would actually be very close to death. So you're seeing how, you know, the decision to play cards like Graveyard Trespasser is really coming up here in spades there for the Rakdos deck, which is, you know, a card players have, you know, over time gone lower on, gone higher on. You know, Derek's decided to play a couple copies this weekend, so it's paying off.
It's definitely paying off. Just being able to keep that graveyard clean is just so important against the Amalla deck for the reasons you said, and it just stops bringing back the namesake card that Angel would need to combo off. So we do have a flipped Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which is able to make a token copy of a creature. I have to see what Derek does here, because it looks like I'm trying to see what's in his hand. The glare is just making that very difficult. But it doesn't matter. Derek's looking to get aggressive here with Kroxa and the Graveyard Trespasser, keeping that graveyard clean and triggering Kroxa, which will add a very strong clock to Angel's life total.
Yeah, Angel, a little bit of a misstep there. I think not convoking the goose to get the goose. You know, just kind of like get a goose on the house there. But hopefully it doesn't come back to bite him.
Looks like we have a go for the throat. That's just taken up the Dina again. Just so many answers in Rakdos Midrange. Just it's crazy how Rakdos Midrange just has this suite of removal spells at disposal, right?
Yeah, the good mixture of removal plus pressure is really what allows this deck to flourish. You know,
speaking of pressure, Shoulder of the Apocalypse is now in play.
Yeah, and you know, this is the first time we've seen Derek tap out like basically the entire game. Outside of when we brought Kroxa, you know, and forced Angel to have no cards in hand, but you can kind of see just how like Derek has done a good job of slowly but steadily taking over the game. It's been a long game. Derek's kind of been in the driver's seat for a bit of it, but you know, kind of knows when to tap out and knows when not to.
So we have an extraction specialist coming into play, bringing back that Dina once again. But the fact that Derek just tapped out Sheoldred is basically his way of saying, I'm ready to end this game now. I can put this threat down and it's going to survive. It's going to survive. And this is also a really good way for Derek to recoup some life, just thanks to Sheoldred's, you know, draw trigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that trigger is going to, I think, come up pretty big because Derek was pretty close to getting, chip shotted, but we've seen him sort of stabilize at 8, by almost sheer force of will, it seems.
For sure.
Doing everything he can to just gain extra life every turn.
For sure. And with the Sheldred in play, it negates what Dina can do through passive life loss. That Sheldred is just going to make up that life. It's going to almost put it at parity, which is kind of what you want when you're at 8 life.
Mm-hmm. It does look like Derek picked up a Fatal Push for turn. He's just going to actually fire it off on the Dina.
Again, it's like this Dina has been in and out of play like 3 times now. I believe the last card in Derek's hand is a Thoughtseize, which is not that great considering Angel is empty-handed and there is a Kroxa in play.
Yeah. Good one to discard to Fable the Mirror Breaker with some blood, something like that. But
for sure.
One thing that we're really kind of seeing too is like, imagine, if Angel was able to have Amalla keep coming back off all of these, we gain incidental life, right? We explore. Derek's having to lose life to fight over the Amalla. The difference in like having an Amalla in your graveyard or not in this matchup is pretty big. And it comes up.
Yeah, and there's also a testament to just Derek's respect for, exiling the Amalla. You just don't want that keep coming back when you're trying to develop a board and just try and take over the game, which Derek looks to be doing right now by taking everyone into the red zone outside of this colorless spirit token. And it looks like a big chunk of damage is coming Angel's way.
Yeah, Angel has to lose 3 because Kroxa is making Angel discard with no cards in hand.
Yeah.
And I think this is a situation where Angel can technically live, but doesn't really have any draws to get us out of the situation long term.
I mean, Collector Company is fine, but I still don't think that does enough here.
Yeah, the big problem is we don't have anything that life gains on ETB, so we can't, like, if one of these was like Lunarch Veteran instead of the Spirit, then you're right, we could collect a company into Yawgmoth Walker plus Amalla, and with knowing Derek only having Thoughtseize in hand, the combo would go off, and then Angel would have a 20 in play, and even if Derek ended up drawing a kill spell, we would just have 70-ish life, and figure it out from there.
I think you need a particular set of like draws here, so like Collector Company and then maybe like a Skyclave Apparition just to soak something up through exile. It looks like we're just playing a Wildgrowth Walker in passing in the facing a Sheldred, a Kroxa, and a Flitz Fable of the Mirror Breaker here.
Yep.
So it looks like Derek drew a Brain Crusher Giant as well, which is also quite interesting here.
Yeah, I wonder if Derek is
thinking whether think of the stomping or just playing the creature.
Yeah, because you could play the Bone Crusher and then haste it up. But it looks like we're just going to kill one of those spirits to make it so another creature gets in the red zone.
Yeah. It was a pretty good top deck.
Yep.
Figure out your blocks. I don't think you have any choices here, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Angel is going up to 2 and then dies with the Shielded trigger.
Yep. That was a pretty impressive game by Derek there, just respecting the graveyard in a massive way there, just through with the Graveyard Trespasser, making sure those Amallas can't come back, because the best way to deal with the creature combo deck is just to exile the biggest threats. Seeing that return to the ranks, bringing back creatures, sure, for blocking, but it wasn't anything that could initiate the combo. So Derek being very proactive and respecting that combo was a big deal there, and ultimately led to that victory.
Yeah, and the big deal too in deck construction, as we are going to look at these players' decks in just a second, talk about sideboarding, playing those 3 Graveyard Trespassers this weekend put Derek in a position to play the games in that way, and very easily could have different cards that maybe wouldn't allow for that to happen.
Exactly. Graveyard Trespasser seems a really good option these days. So let's go to sideboarding. Mason, what would you like to see from the Amalla player? What would you bring in against Rakdos Midrange here?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that, and players can play these a lot of different directions. The things that I'm really interested in is I really want Voice of Resurgence. That's just kind of a creature that's going to make it so if Derek tries to kill your cards on your turn, you're going to get some incidental value. Sometimes it even re-triggers the Amalla combo. So that's just kind of the Lightning Rod creature. We might see things like Fatal Push be bring in as well. Deep Cavern Bat sometimes comes in this matchup. It looks like Angel is sort of just not having a lot of cards for this matchup and is instead trying to fight over various other matchups. I can see Guardian of Faith coming in as a way to sort of protect ourselves from potential sweepers that Derek might be playing and also dodge some spot removal. So I'm excited to see exactly how Angel wants to go about this here. But typically we see players have cards like a bunch of Voice of Resurgences or, Healing Out the Sun Crown is something that like I personally did at the RC that's very good in this matchup. We see Angel does have a thing like Voice of Resurgence already in the main deck and already has 2 Skyclave and Extraction Specialists in the main. Those are some of the cards you might see in the sideboard for this matchup. So it looks like Angel is not preparing a bunch in the sideboard and is kind of being like, hey, yeah, I'm maybe a little light on the cards I want for this matchup, but most of them are in my main deck in the hopes of winning that game number 1. Because having your sideboard cards in your main deck is typically the most impactful way to affect those kind of matchups.
Absolutely. So let's go to Derek's sideboard and see what would you bring in against the Amalla player. Like, as we talked about throughout that game, Derek had plenty of main board answers. So what else do you bring in just to make sure you win that second game?
Extinction Event is going to be a pretty good one. That's going to exile all the things in play. That's a great way to sort of, we can clean up a bunch of the life gainers. We got the Amalia's proper. Leyline of the Void is a card I imagine Derek is probably going to want. We saw how controlling the graveyard was so important to things like ranks wasn't big. I can imagine a world where Derek maybe doesn't want Leyline just because he wants to, have too many cards in his main deck that are good and can't find cuts. But that's sort of a, positional thing we're going to have to see him and how he wants to do. And I've seen some players play cards like Hidetsu Consumes All just because there are, in some builds of Amalla, a lot of 1-drops and other builds not. Kind of depends there. Without it being open deckless, we do play closed deckless tournaments. I could see Derek maybe not bringing that card in when he's on the draw, but maybe having it on the play if he sees, a bunch of Snoot Scouts and stuff in game number 2. But I think for the most part, Derek built his deck in a way that's pretty respectful of the Amalla deck when it comes to game 1 configurations and stuff. So, even things like Inti in the main deck mean that we get to actually, we don't have the chump blocking going on and stuff like Lunark Veteran that we saw in that game that helped prolong the game so long. So I think, Derek has put himself in a way where he's pretty respectful of this deck, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how he wants to play it as the players are drawing up their opening hands.
Okay, then let's go back to the feature match area and see these opening hands. Hopefully they'll both keep a 7 and we'll have a nice back and forth game of Magic. Because there's nothing worse than mulliganing to like 3 or 4. And it looks like they're both going to take a mulligan. So you said you played Amalla combo at the RC, at the Pioneer RC, right? What are your general thoughts about that deck? Because Amalla just broke out the second Lost Caverns of Ixalan released.
Yeah, once we banned the Discover cards and it was like, okay, are there any other really good stuff? And it's like, oh, wow, there's some other good stuff. Amalla, was actually even kind of doing well during the Discover combo stuff, right? Like it had a couple top 8s, which is kind of a good sign, right? If your deck is competing with sort of format warping, instantly banned decks. That all being said, I think the Amalla deck is very, very good. Before the release of No More Lies and Murder at Karlov Manor, I thought it was probably the best, not like a top 3 deck in Pioneer, kind of at worst. It just gets to play a really strong, proactive game of playing creatures to the board and beating down and sort of threatening the combo kill, and just sort of gets to have this turn 3 kill, which no other deck in the format really has, and that puts a lot of pressure on players. So I was a big Amalla believer and, was wanting to play that deck a lot and, haven't had to play as much as I would like to, but it is a really fun and rewarding time when you do play it.
For sure. I've noticed there are a couple of different builds of Amalla combos. So obviously Collector Company is a really good card in the deck, but what about Knight Errant of Eos? Because that card plays really well because you have so many 1-drops.
Yeah, Knight Errant is great in these sort of decks as we do see a Snoot Scout coming down here on turn 1. And the Snoot Scout and stuff like that is why it's so good. You have so many cheap plays, and then it dodges stuff like Grafdigger's Cage that sometimes players play as a way to fight over these things and just helps with your beatdown plan.
It looks like Derek brought in those Duresses from the sideboard just to not necessarily take, a card, but just having that information of what your opponent has is just so important in these matchups. It allows you just use the correct cards and the correct removal spells on these creature focus decks.
Yeah, and I imagine that's a sign that Derek thinks the non-creature spells matter so much that he's willing to have a card like this that only has a few targets in the deck, right? We saw how Collected Company, Court of Calling, and Return to the Ranks were such big players in game number 1. So he's basically willing, like, hey, I understand my opponent is mostly on blanks in this matchup, but I just have to do what I can to put them in an awkward position.
For sure. So it looks like we're just doing Amalla combo things. So we're looking to play a Lunarch Veteran and a Gilded Goose here. And obviously getting aggressive with the Senate Scout, because why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these little points seem like they might not matter a bunch, but we saw last game how we were kind of racing Derek, getting in all those points in the early turns. It does add up. Especially
with the ward on Amalla, that 3 life combined with the bit of triumph that we saw in the first game can just stack up out of nowhere, especially if you just don't have a Sheoldred to offset that life loss.
Yep, I think Misplaced Ginger also Derek there put in a Misplaced Ginger token of himself with blood doing the praying pose and seemingly a bloody background.
Oh yes, I see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what's next on the token life.
Yep. Not going to lie, I just thought they were the old, because they're the old border tokens. I just thought they were just that. But now you mention that, I can see Derek in the art, and that is very clever.
Yeah.
And speaking of very clever, here is a Skyclave apparition from Angel Flores that's going to take out this Bloodtithe Harvester.
Yeah, a very aggressive play there. Now, we saw Angel's hand because of the duress earlier on. We know that there wasn't much of the combo. So this looks like Angel maybe, this has been one of the cards that is drawn and just wants to keep the pressure on Derek and keep forcing Derek to tap out to hopefully punish that tap out at some point.
Yeah. Trying to see what's in Derek's hand. It's quite difficult. But if he's just playing a Blood Crypt tapped and passing, I would assume there is some removal or interaction on Angel's turn just to stem this aggressive game plan.
Yeah, it looks like Derek might have Graveyard Trespasser and Go for the Throat along with some lands. And so we might be something like Go for the Throat, kill the Skyclave apparition in e-combat, and love this play by Angel to get the voice in early to stop it. Yeah,
this is a card that Derek does not want to see on the opposing field because it's just so awkward. But it looks like Derek's going to remove the Lunarch Veteran in response to the Voice Resurgence coming into play.
Very heads-up play there by Derek. Now that we've answered that, even if Amalla is in hand, which I think it is for Angel, that's going to mean that we're not able to win with just a quarter calling off the top, and we're going to need multiple pieces, which is hard when we're stuck on lands.
Yes. I believe there's a Dina in hand as well.
Yeah. That would be... And we're seeing, Derek here in this spot now, knowing that it's basically impossible for Angel to actually kill him. He's finally tapping out. Where last turn we had that Trespasser, we could have played it, right? We could have saved some life, but Derek knew it was better for me to just hold up, go for the throat, try and eat these creatures in combat if I get a chance, and we'll also prevent Angel from, building up that board state.
Yeah. Considering Angel's only on 2 lands, they're doing very, very well right now. And that's just a merit to Amalla combo, right? The deck is just so low mana value that you can still win with 2 or 3 lands in play.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like Angel passed, so it's going to be nighttime. Despite having spells in hand, obviously doesn't have any lands. Derek is going to know that is a Court of Calling, most likely, or some removal spell.
Looks like Derek has a lot of lands in hand. Can't really see.
I don't know if you're used to watching Derek play on Saturdays in Pioneer, but round 2 we start getting really, or just never lucky, and we always draw lands. So it's just really the Derek Pike experience right now.
Are we going to go for the Convoke? I've got another Voice of Resurgence. Oof. Okay, this is going to put Derek in a really rough position.
I like that. I can't quite tell Angel's hand, but I like that if Angel did have the cord, we decided not to do anything because, Derek was just holding up lands, and we decided, actually, you know what? I just want to kind of keep building up my board presence. Maybe I should have done the last turn. Who really knows? I wanted to threaten the combo, but I'm not committed to it. I can keep playing and wait.
I think there is merit to being patient here, especially if Derek's just going to draw nothing but lands. However, Castle Locthwain is a pretty good one to draw. You can at least do something with all the lands that you are drawing. I think we're now going to see the Call of Calling. Oh, we can see a Collector Company. Will we find the Amalla? Or will it just all be lands? Oh, it's just a Prosperous Innkeeper. That's kind of a sad Collector Company.
Yeah, and this is kind of why you see some players play things like Knight Errant of Eos that you were talking about, because you're not a great company deck. You know, you don't have a ton of hits when you like look at your actual numbers. Only about 27 creatures in the deck for Angel in game number 1. And, you know, is Gilded Goose really a hit? It's kind of close, you know, when you think about it.
Yeah, and plus with Knight Errant at Eos, you do get a 4/4 out of the deal, which can, you know, it means you can just be that extra aggressive. If you don't have the combo, you can just beat people down with this sizable threat.
Yep.
Here comes the Amalla.
And this is a spot, too, where if Derek even had a removal spell in hand, we know Derek's on all lands. But if Derek does, if we cast it, the voice is going to trigger twice, which is just going to restart the Amalla triggering. So Derek is basically forced to wait unless, you know, he is going to actually be dying at this point.
Yeah. Here comes the Dina. There's going to be a lot of life gain triggers. Hopefully, our person on the floor can keep up. Looks like there's another Amalla as a backup.
Yeah. I think Angel smells weakness there from Derek. Bending that Amalla, it is sort of your key and best card. And just putting in the yard is like a really big sign of like, hey, I kind of know you don't have anything. Let's just, you know, let's game.
Let's just get this finished. Plus, Return the Ranks is a fine draw that can get back the Amalla. But considering Angel is just deploying this combo without any threat or interaction from Derek, because obviously we know he's got nothing but lands. I just think this is the green light for Angel just to go, yeah, I can start doing this. Unless Derek draws like an extinction event, perhaps off the Castle Locthwain, which is a one-off, so it's going to be fairly hard to just find that. And also, Castle Locthwain deals damage or loses life over turns as well. So there's only so many times you can activate that.
Yeah, and when you're flooded like this, it's kind of the worst thing with Castle Locthwain. You have the mana to activate it, but you can't get the cards out of your hand to draw. Yeah, and
nice to scoop it up.
The classic Derek Pite there, just all lands in hand. Very unlucky when you think about it. You know, just what a tough spot to be, but also a great job there from Angel, sort of playing the game, not rushing when we didn't need to, realizes like, hey, you know, I can attack with these voices. If you block, I'm going to get to filter my draw a little bit more. So good tight play there from both players.
Absolutely. And even Derek has some really good starts to the game. Like we saw Derek fire off that duress, just not necessarily to take a Collector Company or Return the Ranks, or just to say, hey, what's in your hand? I need to know what's up, you know, what I need to prepare for. Unfortunately, Derek did draw those lands and kind of came a bit of a nothing game, but Angel had the confidence to assemble the combo, bin the other Amalla that she didn't need. That was like the flex of that game, right? It's like, yeah, I don't need my backup because you haven't done anything for the last like 4 or 5 games. Let's go back to the sideboard quickly. Because I imagine there is some merit, especially from Angel and Derek, about, you know, play draw sideboarding. So what would you bring in here on the draw as Angel or the Amalla combo deck?
Yeah, there's a couple things you could do. Like, you know, typically the Amalla deck isn't going to bring in things like Thoughtseize in this matchup, but Angel might have saw like that, you know, Derek seemed to have less creatures potentially, you know, like maybe there's more interaction spells, so you want to have something like that. Not personally how I would go about it, but it makes a lot of sense. You also see things like Redain if you think there's a bunch of extinction events. That could be a way to stop that, but also just playing the backside, making, you know, the removal a little bit worse. All things you could do. I think for the most part, we're going to probably be playing very similarly here from Angel's perspective. We just don't have a lot of tools that could be play draw dependent. Now, for Derek's, though, on the other hand, Hidetsu Consumes All is a card we were talking about, and we saw how that could have been very good in that game. I don't know if that's a card Derek wants to bring in this matchup. It can be a little divisive, but on the play, it makes a lot more sense to sort of slam this, clean up all the ones, exile the graveyard, and sort of get a threat going. So I'm going to be interested to see kind of how Derek does decide to sideboard here, as it does look like our players are finishing up their sideboarding right now for game number 3.
Looks like Angel mulligan to 6, and we are firing off of the Blackcleave Cliffs into a Thoughtseize from Derek here. So Derek gets to better than the duress in the first game, where you can actually take a card here. Interesting, it looked like Angel Flores brought in the Thoughtseizes as well.
Yeah, we talked about that there a second, right? Like Angel might be thinking there's going to be more things that we need to like clear the way for our combo. So while maybe not something you would traditionally do, thinking that, Derek is going to play a game that's much more reactive, I kind of, like taking maybe a risk there. Also, it's very reasonable that Angel just knows Derek, right? Like Derek is kind of the person when it comes to Pioneer. Derek might also not realize they're playing against Misplaced Ginger, but that's all to say Derek typically plays these more controlling aspects to the Rakdos deck. So seeing something like that could be something that, is better here than maybe against the average Rakdos player.
For sure. So Angel fires off a Amalla, which is going to get, and the Lunark veteran is going to get stomped by Bonecrusher Giant just to stop any silly little life triggers that are going to happen. Talking about how, in the first game, Derek is just caring about stopping those marginal life gains and triggers, because eventually Derek can take over the game. He's just trying to be respectful and proactive here.
Yep.
It looks like we have a Wild Growth Walker in hand as well.
Yeah, no life gainer though. So
we do have a Fatal Push, which is just going to get slammed immediately at the cost of free life.
Yeah, I would have loved if Angel had like conned to combat there and got the 2 points in before, sort of being like, hey, guess what? You're going to have to answer this Amalla. But it was probably going to die anyways when we moved to combat. Amalla, namesake card. Derek knows that the life total is going to matter a fair bit.
And this is a fantastic backup to that Fatal Push in Graveyard Trespasser, which is going to deal with this Amalla that's in the graveyard. Feeling very deja vu from the first game here.
Yep. Yeah, and Derek now also has Hive the Eye Tyrant in play, so the graveyard is not going to be a safe place.
And here is a Thoughtseize they have drawn, taking the Archfiend of Dross. So Mason, let's talk about Archfiend of Dross. How has that performed in Rakdos Midrange as of late? Because I have seen it appear in like a couple of lists.
Yeah, I think it's a really great way to pressure your opponent. Like Shieldred is a strong card, but it is legendary. It's more controlling. And we talked about how Derek sort of has made his deck a bit more aggressively slanted. So this card allows you to, play those more aggressively slanted games and just really quickly kill your opponent.
So Derek gets into the red zone here with the Graveyard Trespasser, just making sure the graveyard is clean while also just attacking into the life gain deck just to make sure, this game can be closed out. And just playing a Bonecrusher Giant as a backup is a pretty good threat on its own. It can block a lot of threats here.
Yeah, and Derek doesn't have a ton of answer spells, as we just saw from the Thoughtseize there. So just taking the time to develop to the board and trying to be like, okay, here is my pressure. I'm going to try and kill you before you draw the Amalla.
Yeah. So Angel plays an Adina and another Wild Growth Walker. It's a shame we don't have a way to explore, because these Wild Growth Walkers can just get out of hand. It doesn't matter anyway, because we have an Extinction Event, which I believe is the only copy in Derek's deck or Derek's list.
Yeah. Yeah, Derek making sure, because there was an errata about 2 or 3 years ago now where they matched the front side there. So Derek's just making sure that it was actually not a 0 like it used to be back in the old days. But it is 1 mana now. That was changed a couple years ago when we started doing double face cards all the time.
And this is where Derek can start becoming aggressive. I'm not sure what Angel can draw here to get out of this. Maybe a Collector Company?
I think Collector Company is about all we can do.
Yeah.
The Extinction Event sort of cleaned up too much and made it so where Return of the Ring type cards aren't going to be good enough.
Okay, it looks like Derek drew a Fatal Push, which can deal with this straggling Lunark veteran.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Derek's just going to activate Hive, Fatal Push, and try and just win.
Yeah, I mean, Angel has one card in hand, not a lot going on. I kind of like being the aggressor here and just trying to end this game because Angel is on 9 life.
Yeah. Yeah, and looks like Derek is...
Oh, we have a caller calling.
Yeah, it looks like Derek was basically just like, hey, if you have a Coco, that's the only thing that could punish me really hard for playing Fatal Push. And if you don't, I'm going to have you dead in the next turn anyways. So looks like we actually could not have cast the Company maybe with the mana we had. But it is going to be A-okay because Derek is going to kill anyways. And so Angel is just going to concede.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations to Derek there. A sort of a moment of, well, if I can't do this, I'm actually dead anyways. That's my bad. And that happens sometimes, you make it a little oopsie-poopsie. Mana basically built to never have it happen. Yeah, it occurs.
Yeah, Magic is really hard. And it looks like Derek was going to win that game anyway, just due to the pressure that he managed to put on with the Trespasser and the Bonecrusher Giant. It seemed a lot cleaner, that game, compared to game 2, where Derek was just completely flooded.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk to Derek in just a second when we get an interview with him and sort of to see exactly what he wants, to have in that matchup. I'm curious to see his thoughts on it. Like we talked about before, when Amalla first came out, he thought the deck was really bad. He was talking about how awful it was while he lost to it on stream all the time. So I'm really excited to see sort of what he thinks because, a lot of his changes, they are things that make sense to be better against this deck. So I'm curious to know if maybe that's, just a coincidence, or if it is like, hey, the deck's not great in my opinion, but I got to respect it a little bit. But we will have Derek in the interview in just a second. But yeah, that was a really fun and interesting match. And we kind of got to see all 3 games, right? Where both players sort of did their thing. And specifically from the Amalla player, the thing of threatening the combo over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game. As you said, there was a good amount of back and forth. Derek did his thing and played really well in those 3 games, just acknowledging Amalla as, even though he said, Amalla is not a serious deck, I don't think it's good, he still has to respect her and did all he could just to passively deal with the, the life gain triggers, making sure the graveyard's clean, getting rid of those Amallas, because Return of the Ranks is a card you just have to respect it because it can just bring everything back and it's just like a whoops, I combo, I win kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a lot of the benefit of this deck, right? Is you get to do that. And that is something that I think is sometimes really hard to leverage as well, right? I think Angel did a good job of posturing it, especially in that one turn, where we didn't develop to the board, we didn't play anything, but neither did Derek. And so we just kind of upkeep and drew and started casting our spells again, right? Sort of being like, hey, I have something. Yes, we lost out on some mana. We didn't really do much, but that's okay because now Derek's like, well, obviously Angel has a cord. Like, why else would you not play something, right? And you played a spell. I know your hand, you don't have any lands, right? And so while Derek couldn't do much, if Derek had something like a kill spell, it would have put him in a much more awkward position going into the rest of the game. And that can be something that's really, really tough to play against. Unfortunately, Derek's probably played more Pioneer than most people have, combined. So he's going to be prepared. Yeah, exactly, for that year. So as he's sitting down here, putting on his headset, let's hop down and talk to Derek Pite Bender as misplaced himself. Congratulations, Derek, on being 2-0 at the NRG. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mason?
Me and Emma are doing well. We were so excited to see you play and have classic Derek luck in game number 2.
Oh yeah, where I drew, like, can you see my hand? I couldn't tell if you could see. Every time I drew a land, I'm like, oh, at least there's something here to document how unlucky I'm getting.
Yeah, we talked about it in the commentary. Just talk us through about the the matchup, because Mason told me like he thought Amalla combo wasn't necessarily a good deck, nor a deck that would do really well. So how do you prepare for that leading into today and the Pro Tour?
Yeah, I've gone on record to say I think the deck's pretty bad. I think it's really easy to target, and the three best decks in the format, which are Red, Black, Phoenix, and Blue, White, in my mind, are just naturally good against it. So even if the deck is good and I'm wrong about that, it just never lines up well. The deck, unfortunately, is one of the better sort of creature combo decks we've seen recently. They're very they're actually really good in 2 removal, and they have a lot of different ways to win. I have no sideboard cards for them this weekend, just because I have decided not to respect it. Approaching the deck, I kind of have to just draw my wraths like I did in Game 3. Extinction Event is a house against them, and yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your idea to bring in duress there? Is that just because the non-creature threats are that good? Because obviously, we all know that deck has like 30-ish creatures in the deck. You're bringing in duress. That's a pretty big sign of something. And we were just kind of curious. That way Twitch chat can sort of stop yapping at you.
No, I brought in duress so I can look at my opponent's hand and discard a card to do so. There's actually no reason for it to be in there other than for me to just lose a card for no reason. No, actually. I think when they play a creature game, their creatures are a lot worse than mine, and so the cards I'm actually worried about in the matchup are Coco, Return from the Ranks, and Court of Calling. I think if I have removal plus discard for those non-creature spells, I'm very safe. I'm in a lot of game places where I can't really die out of nowhere. There's not many cards in the format that prevent the sort of non-creature blowout like duress does. I don't like the card, but I have a few stinkers in my main, and there's I just can't interact with those spells otherwise, except for kill all their stuff, and then you're kind of playing well, I'm going to kill their stuff, hope they don't have return to the ranks. There's they don't have return, they Coco. It's it doesn't matter, I killed all their stuff. It's duress covers all of that, while also helps with my main game plan of having a bunch of removal and having better creatures.
Okay, yeah. So looking at your Rakdos Midrange list for today, I've noticed you've gone a little more aggressive than before, adding Inti and then Archphenodros. Just talk us through that. What made you decide to be a little more aggressive today?
The deck has already sort of been not very good in the early game. Bankbuster was kind of that curve filler, but it is exploitable against matchups where the Bankbuster doesn't matter and where you don't have time to actually spend 2 mana to draw a card. And so Inti fills that gap the best, while also being very good against the combo decks in the format, like Lotus or Enigmatic. And you can find your hate pieces a lot better when they can't interact with it. Notably, Enigmatic is one of the worst matchups for red-black. If you have an early clock that also generates some sort of card advantage or finds you the cards you need in the matchup, it's the perfect card. Yeah. The Archfiend is just to respect Phoenix mostly. I think the third Shieldred is a bit dead if you ever draw the second one in a lot of spots, because either they can just lightning axe it or they just have infinite damage in the air. And I didn't want to go to 2 4-drops. It could be a third Shieldred, but I'm worried about Phoenix in the room today.
Yeah.
Speaking of being worried about it, don't worry, Derek. It's just you, me, and 800 people watching, Emma as well. What is the best card from Murders, do you think, for the Pioneer format? What is the thing that's kind of having you kind of thinking about the format differently since the release of that set?
For Murders, it's so funny because I played my Modern RC last weekend, and it was a very easy Surveil lands. But in this format, those cards aren't on my radar at all. I think No More Lies is the easy answer. I'm trying to think if there's another card that really... I think it's just No More Lies. The blue-white brains in the room are going insane. They're finally, Mana League, we're doing it. Maybe I must be missing something, because that can't be the only card. But yeah, I'll say No More Lies.
All right. Thank you for the easy cash in. I'm glad that I can always count on Ginger for the bare minimum. Well, awesome. Well, Derek, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us, and we will see you later.
Okay, then. So I believe, do we have a backup match, Mason?
I don't know. Production will talk in our ear. They'll let us know. Okay. Looks like we're actually going to take a quick break, but before we do that, make sure to click the follow button on this Twitch channel. We're going to be having a 5K standard event tomorrow. We're going to see a lot of these players back for that as well. There's a lot of high-level magic between our normal NRG grinders and the Pro Tour players in town for the week. So don't miss anything. We'll be right back.